something that came up just last night again, is something in my relationship that today, it just dawned on me, applies to the grander scale, society at large. I'm sure a lot of others relate to, my experience in my relationship, and it's a good relationship. I love my person, but there is this dynamic that I feel like I can't ask things in a nice way. I can't ask for what I need in a nice way and be heard. It comes to the point where, I get to this trigger point and I start not becoming a different person, but just being like crabby or triggered when there's this unmet need that something I want to be heard on that has not been addressed. And in order to get it addressed, I feel like I have to come to a place where it's a confrontation, an argument, something like that. Anyway, without going into that person, like I'm not trying to relate it to personal relationships right now. It just dawned on me how much of, two things. One is how much is that a reflection of our society at large, where there are people who have needs. I mean, each of us do have certain needs, and if those needs are not met, those areas become trigger points. They become really like hard friction points. People become really grouchy, really triggered, extremist. They get oversensitive. It becomes a point like it's just hard to discuss anything because there's some underlying unmet need that they've been trying to, whether they are conscious of it or not. And I relate to that very much because there's a lot of things that, for me personally, it takes me probably a week to understand like what's underlying this particular emotion, if it is mine, as far as being able to describe it in a way that makes sense to someone else. Anyway, so there's this underlying unmet need and it becomes this trigger point. I'm sure I don't need to describe that any more for everyone listening to understand what areas I might be relating that to. It can relate to so many. And also, of course, to our personal lives. I'm sure I'm not alone in that particular friction point in a personal relationship as well. The second part of that is how many times do we not listen to something that's coming to our attention in a gentle way and maybe a more peaceful, more beautiful way, and by not paying attention to it because it is, it's something that's not capturing it doesn't have a drama aspect to it, so it's easy to ignore. How many of those things do we ignore that become larger and larger issues or friction points, and then they develop into these things that it does become an area of conflict, or it does become something that we have to address in a more immediate way because we let it get to that point. So anyway, just food for thought about how we can pay more attention to areas of our life and other people. Maybe just also working on our own communication. to have these underlying needs addressed. And like I said, sometimes it takes me a while to understand what the underlying need is. And I feel that also relates to society at large in the way that it might take us a while to figure out what is the underlying need on some of these friction points, these talking points we have in our society that people get really contentious about. Perhaps the underlying need has absolutely nothing to do with that particular topic. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, just wanted to put that out there. Thinking about you, like just inviting you to think about while you're living your life, how do the experiences, the things that get, the beautiful things, but also like the things that you feel like you need to deal with over and over and over again, like I was thinking about this morning with this particular issue. How does that relate to our society at large? And how does that help expand your vision of, the microcosm of your own life as related to the macrocosm, as how we treat each other on more expanded scales? And just something to contemplate, whenever it occurs to you as it relates to anything. Perhaps that's too nebulous. But my example, like with this argument that keeps coming up, I'm just like, how do I be addressed without getting to this point where I feel like I'm becoming this other version of myself that I don't necessarily like, but is getting super cranky because I am not listened to when I say things in what I feel are very nice ways, and are, I guess, too nice and just kind of like dismissed. So it could be that, but it could also be, it could be things like that, the areas of friction or trigger points, but it could also be beautiful things, like seeing the beautiful things in your life and seeing how those relate to the larger scales, those macro scales in our society, and being able to see, witness both of like the entire spectrum, and seeing for yourself what lessons that may have for you just by noticing. You don't have to dig, just notice and just notice, witness. There's so much that I think is embedded within the word witness. Just being able to see something. We all want to be seen as humans, but like how many other things are like there that need to be seen, that perhaps we close our eyes to on that full spectrum of experience. I'll leave you with that for today. I have not done my morning meditation yet. If you haven't, then I don't know, maybe I'll be inspired to record later this evening or later this afternoon. Wishing you a beautiful day.